You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to the Bulletproof Screenwriting Podcast, episode number 133. Cult movies are basically movies Hollywood missed the first time, that they should have gotten, and then the fans got it and made it successful. Troy Duffy.
Broadcasting from a dark, windowless room in Hollywood, when we really should be working on that next draft. It's the Bulletproof Screenwriting Podcast, showing you the craft and business of screenwriting while teaching you how to make your screenplay bulletproof. And here's your host, Alex Ferrari.
Welcome to another episode of the Bulletproof Screenwriting Podcast. I am your humble host, Alex Ferrari. Now, today's show is sponsored by Bulletproof Script Coverage. Now, unlike other script coverage services, Bulletproof Script Coverage actually focuses on the kind of project you are and the goals of the project you are. So we actually break it down by three categories: micro budget, indie film market, and studio film. There's no reason to get coverage from a reader that's used to reading tentpole movies when your movie is going to be done for $100,000. And we wanted to focus on that at Bulletproof Script Coverage. Our readers have worked with Marvel Studios, CAA, WME, NBC, HBO, Disney, Scott Free, Warner Brothers, The Blacklist, and many, many more. So if you need your screenplay or TV script covered by professional readers, head on over to covermyscreenplay.com. And today's show is also sponsored by Indie Film Hustle's Filmmaker Process. We provide screenwriters with professional services to get their films or series packaged, funded, finished, and distributed. Some of the services we offer are pitch deck creation, film budgets and schedules, domestic and international sales estimates, legal contract templates, and consulting. If you're looking to package a screenplay or project, Filmmaker Process can help. Head over to www.filmmakerprocess.com. Well, guys, you are in for a major treat today. I have on the show the battle-hardened, shrapnel-filled independent filmmaker, Troy Duffy. Now, for those of you who don't know who Troy is, he is the writer and director and creator of Boondock Saints. And Troy is one of those stories that is almost not only mythical in the scope of independent film, but infamous as well. Now, Troy was a bouncer at a bar, and he wrote a screenplay, and all of a sudden, it got attention, and there was a bidding war, and he ended up going with a man called Harvey Weinstein, which we will talk about later in the show as well, and Miramax at the height of their powers. And Troy was essentially shot up in a rocket ship to the top. Everybody wanted to work with him. Everybody wanted to be in the movie. He had movie stars begging him to be in the show, in the movie. And it was just a remarkable rise, a meteoric rise as an independent filmmaker. He was basically taking all those other stories that we'd heard, like Robert's and Kevin's and Ed's stories, and just jacked it up full of nitro, and he just exploded to the top. But the higher you go, the faster you fall down to the ground. And that's exactly what happened. There was an implosion. Harvey wanted to cut his legs out from under him. There was disagreements. And all of a sudden, Troy's dream turned into a nightmare. And to make things worse, he allowed his friends to follow him and document this entire time in his life for a documentary called Overnight. Now, when that documentary came out, I saw it when I was younger, and it really impacted me. And like Troy and I say in the show, you know, when you watch it the first time, you're just like, oh my God, you just write it off like this guy's a maniac. He threw away the most amazing opportunity. It was just a nightmare. It's, a train wreck, something to avoid, a cautionary tale. And that's how you first see it when you watch something like that in film school. But as you get older, you start looking at it again. And the biggest thing that you need to really understand is that, yes, and Troy was the first to say this, yes, he did say a lot of those things, and not a lot of it. He said all the things that you see in the documentary, but it's taken out of context. It's edited to make him look worse. It's very scandalous, very tabloid-esque. And so many people in Hollywood still think of him as that guy in the documentary. And I didn't think that was fair, and I wanted to bring Troy on to give him a platform to kind of set the record straight on what really happened, because Troy did not have any control over that documentary. It was released without his knowledge. It just came out and was like a nuclear bomb going off in his career. And he's still dealing with those repercussions today. But I wanted him to come on the show to talk about that whole journey, what he's been up to now, how the redemption story is, where he actually was able to come out of the ashes, get Boondock Saints made after the most powerful man in Hollywood tried to destroy him. And then other adversities that happened when the movie came out, and then its sequel, and how he was able to maintain the merchandising rights, being a film entrepreneur and generating multiple revenue streams from his creation, and so much more. I can't tell you how excited I am to bring you this conversation, because Troy and I talked for nearly 2 hours, and he talked about things that he really has never talked about in public before. And I was very honored and humbled that he would share that with us, the IFH tribe. So without any further ado, please enjoy my extremely entertaining conversation with Troy Duffy. I'd like to welcome to the show Troy Duffy, man. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. We're on our way. That felt good. We haven't been talking for a half an hour.
Yeah, exactly. It's fresh, baby. It's fresh. I'm a professional, sir. No, listen, man. I'm so grateful that you wanted to come on the show, and I've been a huge fan of yours, man. Because you are one of those stories, man. You are one of those stories that you tell filmmakers to scare them at the middle of the night. So, and I heard this story when I was coming, because you and I are of similar vintage. So we were coming up around the same time. So anytime, and I've said this 1,000 times on the show, man, the 90s was a crazy time to be an independent filmmaker. And it was all these kind of crazy stories were coming up, and it was the rise of Miramax and the man who shall not be named, which we'll discuss later, and all of that all of that kind of stuff. And your story came out, and it was just like, okay, that's another Ed Burns, it's another El Mariachi, it's another Clerks. I mean, there was just so many. Carnahan, all those guys.
Joe Carnahan, just a year and a half ago, turned out we were like secret fans of each other. It was like this embrace between two brothers that have been through it in independent film bad, Oh
my God.
If you had been there, it would have been great. It would have been a perfect circle jerk. But
dude, yeah. I swear to God. So I just had Joe on the show, and Joe and I have become buddies, man. Joe is, I understand that you two, just by the small amount of time I've spent with you, just the second I started talking to you, I'm like, oh yeah, you and Joe would get along famously, and Joe would love you. It's just like kindred spirits.
I couldn't believe it. The night I met him, we went to his screening of the new movie he was doing. It was about a year and a half ago with his best friend who was starring in it. It ended up being a really great one, but I hadn't met Joe yet. I'd just been like, when I saw Blood, Guts, Bullets, and Octane.
Yeah, man, 98.
It's like, who's this guy? And then, every time he got interviewed, he seemed like the John Wayne of film, just tough as nails. And
yeah.
Where he sees me, he gets, inundated by fans and stuff afterwards. Right. And he sees me, and he does one of these, and he goes, Duffy. All of a sudden, it's like, boom, and I'm getting squoze. This guy is really freaking strong.
He's a big dude.
Exchange, even though I'm terrible with social media, we did the little exchangey, Oh, it was so great meeting you last night.
You guys would, oh my God, it would be amazing. You guys would
do a movie together. Like maybe I produce some stuff that he directs and writes, and vice versa.
Would that be amazing?
Independent film guys helping each other, especially during this COVID crap.
Jesus Christ, man. So I wanted to bring you on the show, man, because there's been a lot of myth around your story. There's been a lot of, things happening. There was obviously that documentary, which we'll talk about, and things that happened, didn't happen. So I wanted to kind of really take it straight from the horse's mouth, from the guy who was in the center of the storm. What the hell happened? So take us back. Let's take us back to the bar, man, when you're bouncing and you wrote a script. Take us from there and take us down the journey, sir.
Well, long and the short of it is, I've had quite the wild ride, but most of it has been extremely positive. I'm lucky to have been able to do what I do, and I'm very grateful that Boondock turned out the way it did, having faith in something like that and then having it be confirmed by the public is about I have the greatest fans in the world, and believe me, they're long suffering because I'm not so good at this social media thing. It's like it's grown up around me, and I'm like, at first it started out with a guy like, taking a picture of his croissant in the morning. It's, oh my God, 1,000 people like your croissant. I'm like, what? I just didn't get it, right? But yeah, I came to Hollywood. I came once upon a time.
Yes, yeah.
I came to Hollywood with a dream, and it was music at the time. When I first came out here, I wanted to be a rock musician, and my brother and I found some. One was our friend from Colorado. We formed a band and tried to make it happen, and then this all came up in the middle of it because what happened was I got so sick of seeing shitty movies that I said, I'm going to write one of these. And I've had a bit of a history with writing. My father was a Harvard English lit grad that made all of his kids read a novel a month extracurricularly, and we had to be ready to talk about it at dinner on this particular, whatever Sunday we were done with the book, and we better have known our stuff. My dad was also an English teacher. And so he made it so that I knew what good writing was, great writing was, what shitty writing was, okay writing was, and why the whys, the W's of all that. So I had a lot of experience, and I always had my head in a book, always do today, actually. So it wasn't the biggest leap in the world, when it came out, like it's this guy's first script. A bouncer from a bar in L.A. wrote a first screenplay and got picked up. That's the story, though. That was the narrative. It was the first script, and that really pissed every long-suffering writer in this town off. I remember this one time, dude, when the script was really gaining speed, and everybody was hearing about it, and I maybe I had made the deal at this point. I'm not exactly sure, but I went to the local Starbucks. And as I'm in line, it's to the back of this evidently frustrated writers quorum. And they're all reading my script. I had no idea how they got it, but I didn't say anything. So I got this momentary glimpse into what other writers thought. And they just tore it apart, thought it was shit. And they were really upset about that it was my first script. And half of them didn't believe it. Like, no way.
Someone
impossible.
Ghostwritten.
So, the instant ire of every long-suffering writer in Hollywood was happened like right away. But yeah, I got the thing done. I had a friend in contact at New Line Cinema. CB was a buddy of mine from before. He was now an assistant on a producer's desk over there. He read the thing, said, "Would you mind if I handle this?" And I was like, "Go ahead." I never thought it would even get read. I was just kind of doing it as a kind of side thing.
And by the way, when you were writing this screenplay, from what I understand, you didn't even know what format was. Like, what did you longhand it and then transfer it? How would that go?
I had a friend, that worked in the movie business, huge surprise being here
in LA.
Los Angeles. But I was like, can you get me a script that's actually been made into a movie? And she got me the script of, it was a Robin Williams movie called Jack.
Yeah, Coppola's movie.
I just read the format and copied it. I was scrawling things in notebooks while I was on the door at Sloan's, and then I would rent a computer. This is the late 90s, 95, I think, is when this was happening, mid 90s. I would rent a computer every week and just transfer it over and copy the format from the Jack script. So I cobbled together this thing that kind of looks like a script.
So makes screenwriters hate you even that much more.
I didn't even understand at the time they were writing programs. I don't even know if there was, but
the Final Draft was around.
They hate me. So yeah, and then it just took off from there. Evidently, what I expected was for it to go into the, big gray ocean of crap that that Hollywood was famous for churning out. And what happened was the opposite. They read something that instantly had an effect on every reader, and so began this, courtship by all the agencies trying to get me. All the CAAs and William Morris's. I went with William Morris. The journey started right there. And that was it's funny because there's a dichotomy here. There's the journey started with, Harvey Weinstein buys a guy a bar for his first time fledgling director. So, pulling a Troy Duffy in Hollywood became that type of thing, a success story. And then just a few years later, it became pulling a Troy Duffy was just going down in flames.
Right. Yeah. And that's what makes your story such an amazing kind of, mythical stories, because you flew to the top. Like I
had a Zoom meeting with a producer the other day that was like, I've been looking forward to this for like a week, just to see you and how you are, like all that shit that happened and what you did to Harvey Weinstein. I was like, all right, well, I hope I lived up to but there's like a circus freak thing with me now. It's like, you actually like that? Is it what?
No, yeah, I'm sure people are going to ask me, like, did he eat his children when he was off air? I'm like, no.
Is he living under a bridge now, talking to himself?
Yeah, this is a fake background that you've got going on. And that, honestly, man, that's one of the reasons why I wanted you on the show too, man, because I wanted you to set the kind of record straight, because there is so much BS out there about it, and so many rumors and stories, and obviously the doc, which we'll get to in a minute, and all of that kind of shit that just kind of built into this. And then the whole mythology of Boondock by itself, like the movie itself and all that. So so you were at the top of the top. I don't think there was anyone faster to the top, and I don't think there was anyone faster that flew back down the other way. So quickly.
Oh my God, this is like way funner than I thought it was going to be. Yes, I'm actually looking forward to getting into some of this, because after 25 years, I think I've finally figured out what happened.
Exactly. All right. So William Morris has the script now. They're repping it out there, and from my understanding, there's a bidding war, right? There became a bidding war for it.
Yeah, between the two biggest indie houses out there, it was Mike DeLuca at New Line and Harvey Weinstein at Miramax, and it was that year that Miramax swept the Oscars. I think they took 11 Oscars. So the year of Chocolat and all that stuff.
Yeah. It was like the height. It was like at the height of
Harvey had found out that New Line wanted it, and had it faxed to him on the private jet that he was on his way to the Oscars. By the time he landed and read every faxed page, he was like, "Get this kid, in my hotel room." Which is not a good thing. So I'm saying, which is not a good thing normally. Yeah, it's not necessarily a good thing these days, is it? But and then that bidding war started between the two biggest guys out there in the indie world, DeLuca and Weinstein. And
then you told me a story last time we spoke about Harvey when you walked into the room when you first met Harvey. Within the first 5 minutes. I found this so fascinating.
All right, yeah. And the first, okay, let's rehash. Harvey is every bit the gangster that everyone thinks he is. I walked into the room, and there he is. There's this nosh, it's like a buffet set up in this place at the Peninsula Hotel, and his brother Bob, I remember Harvey was just like getting fitted for a tux, and he sits down in this chair, and he's got his knee up like this, and his big belly sticking out, and his brother's over his shoulder, almost like a bird on his shoulder. That Bob seemed to be the sort of brains of the outfit, and Harvey was the brawn,
the muscle.
So he's like, Harvey says, what actors are you seeing in this for the roles? And he knew everything about the script, right? So I was like, well, the first guy I picked out was Jim Carrey. This is when Jim was in the process of doing The Truman Show, his first dramatic picture. But I was friends with his I'd become good friends with his manager, Jimmy Miller, at that point, who is incidentally Dennis Miller's brother, and they both have exactly the same voice. It was totally uncanny. But Jimmy was hanging out at the bar and stuff, and I loved Jimmy, and I was like, can we get there was a moment where he was trying to get it, but I was like, so Jim Carrey for this one. Then I listed actors for the other roles, and he goes, let me tell you something. If you don't go with Miramax with Boondock, you don't give Boondock Saints to Miramax and make a deal with me, I'm going to get every actor you just listed in my movies, and you won't get a single one.
Wow.
I was just like, ding. No, there's two things that happen when you get gangstered that well that quickly.
Yeah.
Number one, you're pissed. You're like, I totally just walked into that. Number two, you're like, I kind of want this guy on my side if I go make a movie, you know. These days, probably not.
Not so much at the moment. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show. And everyone listening, I mean, he was the 800-pound gorilla, literally and figuratively, in Hollywood at that time. So I was telling you the other day, it was just like, it's just kind of like you want a really cutthroat shark of a lawyer on your team and not against you. And that's kind of the same reaction you had.
Yeah, it was like, you know, and I think I said the other day when we were talking, yeah, you want a real shark lawyer. You just don't want to have to go out to dinner with him, you know, which was not exactly. I got a kick out of Harvey back in those days,
right.
In a lot of ways. But, you know, that idea of, you know, reaching down into the gutter and pulling up this kid, it was like pretty effective of me, and all the stuff that was going on, all the ink that came from it, because I think it was during a conversation that happened slightly after that, because I didn't make the decision in the room, we're going with Miramax. Mm-hmm. Producers were right behind me going, don't do that. Keep your mouth shut, you know, tell him you'll think about it. He came down to the bar a couple days later, this big limo pulls up, Harvey and his whole entourage come out. And we all sit around having beers, and he was just like, hey, what are you going to do with the money? Because he knew that I hadn't had, you know, any real money in my life. I said, I'll probably buy this place. I love this bar. And he's like, I'll buy it with you. We'll split it 50-50. I said, deal. You got the fucking script. Let's go. And it got all that.
Oh, so much ink.
So that was like kind of the start of it. You know, I woke up like a couple mornings later. There I am on the cover of USA Today. Odd feeling, you know. Get a call from your dad, like, "What the hell are you doing out there?"
Right. Have you been telling your parents about this at this point? Like, you're like telling what's going on?
I'm not keeping them informed, but I didn't really, you know, know myself. It was such a whirlwind. I'm sure I forgot a bunch of stuff in the town, you know, but. It was, you know, my advice for anybody that this happened, for the 3 people this is going to happen to over the next 20 years, best efforts to negotiate the purchase of in a contract means no efforts. That actually did not happen. We didn't buy the bar together, and I didn't even buy it solo. But you got a lot of ink, you know, and that was the beginning of, you want the Duffy deal type thing.
Jesus Christ. All right. So you've got the deal with, you go with Harvey, and now you start going through casting, and now you're meeting everybody in town. You're the belle of the ball, dude. Like, everybody wants to know. Everyone wants to be in this is such an LA thing, wants to be in the Troy Duffy business.
That was happening at the time, and I think that I disappointed my handlers, because all the people I wanted to meet were my heroes of film, and not necessarily gigantic movie stars, which I didn't turn down. But I was like, you know, I want to meet Patrick Swayze, bro.
Oh man,
I want to meet Jeff Goldblum. I want to meet, you know, and then I, you know. A bunch of others that had done the movies that I loved and cherished, you know, and I was thinking about it. I also didn't think that this was during the time where, I don't know if you remember this. You have to remember this. You were right there with me on this one. There was that time where big movie stars were coming down and doing small independent films to sort of reclaim their street cred. And I would protect this movie from that. I just thought, like, no matter who the movie star is, they bring in that baggage. And I think I have a story here that's obviously effective, and I want to tell it the right way. So I thought it needed either no names or up-and-comers or slightly recognizable people. Hey, that guy I saw him, where we can take them to the next level. And, you know, not the best way, like in terms of the business and producers and agents, you know, if you're getting the movie star attention, but you want to go this way, that's not such a great thing. And then the next thing is he's difficult to work with.
Right. And off your first one, too. This was your first one. If you already had a huge hit, if you had Reservoir Dogs and you want to do Pulp Fiction, or you want to do Jackie Brown, and you want to cast Robert Forster as a lead, you had that street cred, but you were doing it right up front, and that was one mistake.
Yeah, and possibly, you know, my adjustment on that, because Quentin used notable guys that maybe not have been movie stars at the time, but you know, all those guys in Reservoir Dogs, one of my favorite films. They were all, you know, established actors, period. I was actually looking for some pretty fresh faces. There was one point at which I I found this new young actor who loved this script and camped out on my doorstep. Heath Ledger, and
Wow.
he loved it so much, and he was kind of coming off this kind of teeny bopper.
Yeah.
I forget the name of the movie.
10 Things I Hate About You?
Is that it?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
But I loved him, and he was Australian, and he was like way tougher in his image than he would. But he's a deep artist, and so I remember actually meeting with his agency and saying, "Do you have anybody that looks like this?" But they were, dangling movie stars in a very so they were kind of surprised, this young upstart kid over here is who you want when we're giving you this. So that started the sort of he's difficult to work with phase.
And how old were you when this whole thing's going on, dude?
Well, this is happening maybe 24.
Jesus Christ, dude. And
Wow.
and I was telling you the other day that I had a similar, not nearly as publicized experience around 26, where I almost made that movie for the mob and I wrote the whole book about it and all that kind of stuff. And I did this, dude, I almost did the same thing. I didn't have the press. I didn't have the ink, but I was talking to the big producers. I was meeting some of those actors you were talking to. I'm going to people's houses. I'm like flying out to LA and I'm going through all of this process. But the big difference was you had a gangster who actually could get things done on your corner. I had a gangster who was just threatening me on a daily basis. So.
I know. All right, to all your fans out there, Alex told me a story yesterday, and I was just gut laughing because it was like you said something like I was like going to set every day with Joe Pesci, and he's like, "Hey kid, we like what we're saying. You're done. You're all out saying creative and terrific." And then he'd have like a death threat before he went to.
No, he's like, "How am I a clown to you? Am I funny? Why am I funny?" Then you get that moment. So it's just absolutely brutal. So you're 20.
So you went over budget. This is foods and beverages here. This is a serious thing. You got to take the.
So you're 24 years old, which I don't know any 24-year-old who can handle that kind of pressure in general, like that kind of success so quickly. It's a difficult thing to handle when you're our age. Like it's to handle that kind of attention and success, man. What did you think?
I do, but you're so reluctant to even admit that because there's so many people out there that want to get into writing and directing and stuff like that, and I don't know how I handle the success.
But I get that, but it's a
real thing. It's touchy, because it's like anybody would want that. I totally wish I had the tools built into to do the right things.
Right.
I could give advice, like what I do now. Mm-hmm. I would make that black book, keep in contact with every big producer agent. I'd keep the numbers, make sure they knew what I was doing. Just call them up to chat every now and then because it is an incredibly social business. It is who you know. I did not know that at the time. I would also recommend that you've got to set up your second project immediately. You can't just roll all the dice and put all your focus on this. You have to have a place to land no matter what happens here. Those types of things I wish I would have known. I was just kind of free falling through it,
Yeah, and
I wish I had the wisdom. Maybe if I had talked to you at the time.
No, dude, I all I could tell you is this: when I was going through my version of Boondock Saints at a much smaller level of success or attention, for that matter, I was the only reason my head was still so effing big, man. I was like, I'm being flown at legends and icons and big producers and all this kind of stuff. My ego was pretty big. The only thing that kept me in check was a giant mobster sitting behind me threatening my life. That's the only reason I was not completely out of control, because my ego was so ridiculously out of control at that age. I just didn't know any better. So it's not surprising. So that's what, I was introduced to you obviously through the ink that happened when the whole thing went down. But then years later, this documentary shows up called Overnight. And it doesn't, I'm gonna say something though. It doesn't paint the best picture. I'm just throwing it out there. It's slightly off. So you watch that, and when I first watched it, I'll be honest with you, like anybody who watches is like, oh, this guy's a fucking maniac. This guy's crazy. He threw his whole life away. All this stuff, but when I got older, man, I look back and I go, you know what, man? First of all, editing. Secondly. First thing, editing. Editing can be a bitch. And I can cut anybody to look like anything. I mean, even if you give them the meat, you can make it look much worse than it really was. That's one. Yeah. Two, I put myself in your place and I go, you know what, man, if I was 24, 25 and I had that go through me, I'm not sure I would be much better, to be honest. So I had compassion and empathy for what you were going through. So Overnight shows up, tell me what your experience was with that when it showed up, how it happened, all that kind of stuff.
All right. How it happened is probably the place to start there. How it happened, first, like sort of blanket statement, this was totally my fault. 100%. I mean,
right.
Crow eat.
Yes.
I should never have even let it happen.
Yeah.
Never mind, with my friends and stuff. All that. I mean, I had an entourage around me, and these are the guys in the band and a couple of really close friends. We were all at the bar. It was like a social thing. I mean, when I met Mark Wahlberg, it was really funny because he had an entourage too, and our entourage was like mirror images of each other. It's like the two Western guys coming across, eyeing each other. But we really liked each other, and I should have learned more from him. He was really good at dealing with his guys, and I just kind of wasn't, Those guys that did the actual documentary were a guy named Mark Bryan Smith, another guy named Tony Montana, a.k.a. Tony the Pants, which is the moniker we gave him. They were friends. They were bros hanging out. They were part of the gang. And, one of them came up with this idea, pitched it to me, like, you're going through all this stuff now. We start a documentary now. The idea was music and film. Go through the making of the album, the making of the film, and it can become like an educational documentary for kids at film school, which it did. Reasons. Congratulations, guys! You really pulled that one off. So they got together on it, and Mark had just graduated New York Film School, and Tony wanted to be a producer, so they kind of seemed like a perfect match. And they started doing it. But I mean, if I really had the analogy to describe what actually happened, it's when you invite like 6 of your buddies over your house to help you build a front porch. Within 10 minutes, everybody's arguing about what kind of screws to use. If the foundation's okay. No, we got to demo the old one out all the way. Everybody you get it done at the end of the day, but there's strife. And at the end, you feel like maybe I should have hired a subcontractor for this.
Maybe I should have got my hands dirty on this one.
Yeah, but basically, it sort of started out well. These guys were like really highly motivated, and they were bros, So when I would come out of wherever I was, and Mark would come out of the bushes, literally with the camera, I'm like, wow, that's some dedication, right? But I took my eye off the ball. What happened was that antagonism between all of us. And the documentarians started feeling slighted in a lot of ways. And I can't say they didn't have a point a bunch of times, but I was that naive kid that was like, it'll all work out in the wash. We're all bros. Everything will be fine. Just do your documentary. And it was supposed to be, not what it ended up being. It was supposed to be like this story. And, I think the number one thing those guys would say was like, hey, don't worry. We're your friends. We'd never fuck you. Because they were getting like, some pretty saucy footage on all. I can't tell you how many times, after a drunken night, one of the guys called me up. All right, band meeting. Get those guys over here. And,
erase the tapes. Erase the tapes.
Erase the tapes. Crank call, click. So, it started that way with just these little seeds of discontent. And, by the time we were done going through the whole rigmarole of the movie and the album, it all happened. It was like the hardest 2 years of my life, getting all that done, right, and all the ups and downs in it. And then they get their footage and they just like disappear. And, the first thing we all felt was relief. We were like, God, all right, we don't have to have these arguments anymore. We thought they were just taking a break and would come back. But, a year later, this thing comes out. And
wait, did they not tell you anything that was going on? They just started cutting this thing, and they just said, because you signed the release, obviously. Yeah. So they just cut it and released it without letting you know at all anything.
Correct.
Oh, son of a. Jesus Christ, dude.
Yeah. Well,
that's bad. Not only is it bad form, but I mean, at least I would, if you're going to, and I don't even, how old were they, man? Who cares? I mean, they were kids too. They were all kids, man. We're all.
The real tragedy there is that they had it. They had the film they told me they were going to make. They had 400 hours, I think, of real depth, straight immediately when things happen behind the scenes. They had a deeper behind the scenes than I could ever imagine. Me and the guys gave them all the access in the world. Even when we were doing movies and albums, we told everybody around, we'd hold them up. These guys are doing it. Please help them. So they have the day-to-day true story of what really happened there, and the in my opinion triumphant story that it is. Boondock Saints ended up doing something and being something to a lot of people, meaning to a lot of people, and it came out of all that turmoil. And that documentary, I mean, can you imagine if the fans could get a hold of something like that? That wasn't a smeary thing, but like, this is what happened. This is how we actually got there. I can't tell you how many people have done two things that really I find it jarring. Like a guy will go, "Hey, I saw your documentary last night," and I'm like, "Whoa, that is not my documentary."
Why would I direct or release this?
Like, who the hell would do that to themselves? And the other one I find jarring is that people kind of there's two things about it. Like what you just said was kind of prophetic. When you're young and in film school and you watch it, you're just like, tale of tragedy. This guy's a maniac. Dismissal. I learned something from this. Don't be a dick.
Right. It's exactly what I said.
Watch it when you're your age and you go, editing. There's a lot of, so there is even though 100% my fault, should have never let it happen.
Right.
If I should have deigned to control it better. Yes, there is that aspect to it. There is an aspect to it where there was some very loosely edited scenes to make points that didn't really happen that way.
Right. And the thing that's sad about it is, I think you're right. If they have 400 hours of footage of this entire experience from the beginning up to the beginning and the end, you know what? Part of that journey is probably a little messy, probably a little egocentric. We lost our heads a little bit. Hey, man, any of us would. But it would have been actually a really just a better documentary if you would have gone back at the redemption phase. We're like, you know what? I've learned something and I'm going to fight and I'm going to keep going and I'm going to get Boondocks done. And it gets done.
That's one of the things that, was kind of a necessity to me, because we never had me and the guys that all signed off on this to the filmmakers who were just frankly our friends. The whole thing was, we didn't hold back. We gave them, part of the rub was we were giving them some pretty saucy footage. We were letting them open their cameras up wide on some things that most people wouldn't, that could risk making me or all of us look bad. And we started getting concerned in that way. And the shame of it is that they had people that were willing to do that. Give them the real story. All you got to do is this a little bit and tell the real story.
Right.
Don't embarrass people unnecessarily. Don't attack them. Don't just tell the damn story in the way people are. By the way, they're interested in the sensational for about 2 seconds,
right?
And then it's what depth? What is this saying? What is this teaching me? And that story, I think, is probably still out there somewhere in 400 hours of footage in a dark, film storage place, and it's a shame.
Have you ever talked to them again after that, or no?
The day they walked out of my life and went to this thing, I have heard no hide nor hair, have seen them, talked to them, nothing.
Wow, that's took 20 years now, something like that. Something like been since then that happened. Jesus Christ, man. And that's because when I saw this, I was like, one day I would love to talk to Troy and find out what the hell happened behind the scenes, because nobody in their sane mind would allow this to happen. like you just said.
Yeah, I wasn't as hard as it is to believe after watching that. I was sane. that happened in a very, the normal way, rubs between antagonism, between people that are all trying to go towards the same goal. It just happens. You get kind of, sometimes I'm ashamed of it. Sometimes I'm sorry about it. Sometimes I can feel a guy in a room, is looking at some producer over here is looking at me, because they always come up afterwards and they're like, well, what happened there? What happened? And so it's something that haunts me and hangs over me. I won't deny that.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show. Right.
But, I know what happened there. It's funny, too, because I didn't watch it for a couple of years. Right when it came out, I didn't watch it, right? And it was on advice from Billy Connolly. He was like, don't watch it, boy, my dear boy. That way you can just say you haven't seen it. Fuck him. So I didn't, right? Then it came about, it kind of screwed me in a business deal over here on a project. So I watched it, and there is nothing more boring than watching yourself for an hour.
Yeah.
I was just like, but then I saw kind of what they did. I was there. I know what really happened. And I kind of saw how it was, I'm sure creatively edited together to service, some things that weren't. It gave false impressions here and there, but yes, I did all that stuff. I yelled at all those people. I mistreated people. But the question you have to ask yourself is, can somebody actually do that? And actually, why is everybody throwing money and deals at this kid if he's acting like this 24/7? Those were the exceptions. Those moments were the exceptions. I always smooth things out. Deepened my relationships, and I was able to get this done on my terms, my very first one, and that's the story, really. And they're never going to see that, I guess.
So, that would be amazing if one day, these guys, maybe they'll watch this and they'll go, look, man, let's try to do a real version of this. I don't know. I doubt that that'll ever happen. That's a magical world thinking. But, wouldn't that be amazing if you're like, look, dude, I'll give you the 400 hours, Troy. You do whatever you want with it, and cut your own documentary. That would be amazing. I got to
be honest with you. Then you go to the other side. We're back to editing. I can't edit together truthfully my own story.
No, you have to hire somebody.
The thing that makes me look bad, I just like hire you. I'd be like, Alex, you got to fucking do this for me. You'd be like, 400 hours of footage. I got my own shit going, bro. I'm not doing this. And I'll be like, I need somebody that's not me that I trust to do this. Please, yes.
Yeah. Let's go. You, me, and Joe will get together.
Joe. You're so hard,
dude. So we'll all sit together. We'll get an editor to come together. We'll put all the footage together and put out the true story of the making of Boondock Saints. Finally, after 25 years. All right. So good. I'm glad that that's out of the way, and we kind of talked about Overnight, because I'm sure that's one of your favorite topics to always talk about.
It's great. It's wonderful. What was really bad was like during the sequel, when we came out with the sequel when we came out with Boondock 2, that had already been an old story for like 7-8 years. It had come out, I think, 2002, 2003. We're coming out in 2009-ish, and almost every reporter, it was like they just Googled, okay, who's this a-hole? Oh, and they asked me questions about it. And Norm and Sean would have to, they were put in the position of having to defend their friend and director. And I was super pissed off about that.
Yeah, of course.
A little embarrassed. But, it also shows you when you got friends, when you have friends in this business, because even now today, there are these pockets of producers at big companies and people in the business that are pretty big fans of mine, regardless of all that. Yes, there are those that have bought in like, that guy, no way. Mm-hmm. But I have my fans, and all in, it's been a really positive thing. And I'm sort of glad. You learn from your mistakes more, don't you?
Preach.
I learned so many lessons about all that, especially in having to think about it and being confronted with it and having it haunt me over the years in this business and cost me. Mm-hmm. I got to sit back and go, what was the mistake I made? In the pinch of that moment, what should I have done? I was feeling this way. Why? I need to be feeling this way and move forward, Mm-hmm. So I learned a hell of a lot. I really wouldn't change a thing. At the end of the day, I have had the wildest ride, and maybe I have that reputation of, the shining new talent that was in, and then bam, he's a maniac. But I think I've gotten a hell of an education in this business because of all that, you know,
and then some. So and look, man, again, any of us put in that situation at that age. Look, and this is pre-social media, bro. Can you imagine if there was Facebook and Twitter during that time? It would have been. I don't want anything that I was doing at that age out. I was probably a dick. You know, I know there was relationships that were, destroyed because of working on projects together, and egos got involved and never spoke to them again. This happens. This is the business we're in. It is an ego-driven, a lot of times, especially when you're young. Especially when you're coming up, the ego is so powerful and so big. And I've talked to some really big guys in the business, and I realize the bigger they are, the egos seem to be more controlled, they're more comfortable in their own skin. It's the new guys or the people who don't have experience in the battlefield because like just talking to you here, man, you're much calmer than you were when you were 25.
So I'll tell you a fun little secret. Almost all of my friends got so pissed. The people that were there with me and the people that love me, my real friends, both in the business and just, regular life.
Sure.
There have been times with all of them. This moment has occurred, we got to speak out against this goddamn documentary. It's like if people really got to know you and who you were, they'd be saying it's a big pile of shit.
Yeah.
And that's happened so many times, and I've had to kind of talk them back from the ledge. Like I did this. This is my fault. As bad as what you may think of what happened, and as unfair as it is, I did this. And it was the first real punch of ego control came when I understood that we're in control of our own things, that we're the ones that are responsible. Those two guys completely forgiven and understood. It was me. They lashed out and did something to hurt me because I had hurt them, and that's pretty much all there is to it. And and I don't think the one of the worst tragedies about it is they didn't get anything from it.
Really?
No. Well, right now, I mean, I don't know any projects that these guys are on. It's not like I'm searching around. I got Rocco called me up the other day and said one of them had just kind of totally left the business and retired from it. This was a couple years ago too. So they didn't really get the I don't know if they made out with money, but I know that it didn't make much money.
Well, no, it's like a niche of a documentary, basically focused on filmmakers. And that's not going to be, $100 million doc.
So they didn't. I don't think that they benefited or had much success in terms of their lives and careers from it. And I certainly didn't benefit from it, except in a sort of an inner way of understanding.
I argue you got the most out of it, sir, because your inner peace. Sir,
that's an important thing. You're right. Oh
I mean, God. The growth that has taught as he swigs back a bottle. The inner look. No bullshit aside, dude. Seriously, you have gotten to evaluate what you did wrong. I wish I would have had. Not publicly, but a documentary that would go back and show me all the idiot things I did. Like that whole thing with the gangster, dude, my DP was telling me you should be filming this because this is more entertaining and more educational than any movie we will ever make. He told me this while we were there. Why did we film none of it? I wish we would have seen like what was going on. I wish we would have filmed. It would have been the most amazing documentary ever about how not to make a movie.
That was the story, right?
That was the story. But look, man, you had self-realization, and that is huge.
Worth its weight in gold. That's the important thing. Now, I don't think that there's many situations that could arise in terms of me moving forward with my career and doing other films that are going to really that I can't ID and see coming from about 1,000 miles away. It's not like I'm, Mr. Super Careful, hide under a rock. I'll still be myself. But I have definitely learned, and I give it its due course and consideration right now. Being a director is a very rare position to be in, and you're very blessed if you get to direct a film. I've been able to direct two. I'm very blessed, and knowing more and more about the business and moving forward. You get stronger and stronger with this stuff. And it is the mistakes, it is the times you get kicked in the nuts, if you're paying attention, that is the reason that you do. It is the reason that you get better with this. It is the reason you learn lessons and are able to move forward.
And look, man, you've got shrapnel, lots of it. I've got shrapnel, lots of it. And that's why
I set off airport.
all the time, but that's what makes us who we are. And I'm glad, look, I don't know if you've ever had this opportunity before. I'm sure you've been interviewed about this a million times, but I hope this is going to get out there in a big way to really kind of set the record straight, because I wanted to give you a platform to just go, this is what really effing happened, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess you got the exclusive, Alex. I haven't really ever talked in depth like this about that.
I'm humbled about that, and I hope this is a teaching tool, not only for you and me, sir, because I'm learning a lot from this as well, but for everyone listening. Because look, I started Indie Film Hustle purely because of my experience in the business and all this crap that I did. My origin story, I was told when I wrote the book, I'm like, you guys want to know why I have this grizzled, like, hard voice behind this mic all the time, telling you guys that you're going to get punched in the face in this business. I don't care who you are. It was because of that experience. And I'm trying every day to help filmmakers avoid those things. And I hope this interview and this conversation goes a long way by doing that. So I do appreciate you doing that, brother.
I appreciate the platform to air it out a little bit. You know, I have not been, I must have the most faithful fans in the world, because I have not been good with social media or talking about any of this stuff. So it's good to kind of get it out there. And I'm gonna be going on my own stuff. And right now I'm about to make the biggest mistake of my career. You ready? You ready for another?
Yes.
I'm gonna bear myself anew. Now it's not just, yay, he's the ideal deal, and boom, he goes down. It's now the new one. I am going to start getting into social media, and I don't know anything.
God help us all. God help us all, sir. God help us all.
My fans are like, listen, if you don't want to know what's going on, ask Troy. And this whole thing is kind of, the social media thing has kind of happened, and I've been checked out on it. So I'm going to start doing that. And half the reason is because, COVID. This sucks. I got nothing to do, man. We were talking about that the other day too.
Yeah.
And I've known dreaded it for years. I've known I had to do this, and all those fans, they deserve a world of credit for kind of sticking with me and loving Boondock the way they do. I don't know that there's many films with that kind of shelf life, man, and that kind of effect.
No, I will tell you off air. You and I could sit down and talk. I could guide you a little bit on social media. I've been doing it for a little while as well, so I can help you along those. I will help you, sir. I will help you a little bit. Now that all's out of the way, now let's talk about the redemption, the coming back up. So you get Boondocks back from the man who shall not be named, Voldemort. Let's call him Voldemort. Valdestein. So you get your script back eventually, and then you get it released. So tell the story of how it actually gets made.
Oh man, yeah. Now you're hitting on some secrets that I've kept for 25 years, dude.
Okay.
So, exclusive shit I shouldn't say, number 2. Got the documentary out of me. Now you're gonna get some weird. All right, I'm not gonna give you all of it, but I'll give you a couple of.
As much or as little as you want, brother.
When we came to blows, me and Harvey just disagreed on things, and he's like, "All right, that's it. You're in turnaround now. You know what it is." But for the viewers out there that don't, that means that if Harvey has, say, bought your script, $350,000, done paid a couple of your producers, done maybe one location scout, say he's in it $1 million. What turnaround is that you put it like a yard sale, you put it back out for sale. This script that was highly desirable by the industry, and you try to recoup some of your money. About the most anyone gets in a turnaround situation is 50%, half their investment. Mm-hmm. So Harvey puts it in turnaround. Lo and behold, this other company wants to do it, a new company, a new guy, and he charges 100% in a turnaround situation. I was friends at the time with a guy named Arnold Rifkin, who was the president of William Morris and a friend. I I got to tell you about going up to his house one day. It was unbelievable, too.
I'm sure it was.
About a young man's ego soaring. I was like, this guy had guard dogs that responded to German. It was amazing.
It was like True Lies. It was like the beginning. It was like the opening of True Lies. Got it.
Right. So he was like, I really looked up to Arnold, and he gets super pissed, like Harvey Weinstein will not be treating our clients like this. So he puts his whole company on red alert. Boondock Saints gets made right now. Find somebody to pay the 100%, or we chop Harvey down in some way, but this movie gets made and this young writer-director gets out there.
Wow.
Because when you're putting turnaround, by the way, that's
death.
You're somebody's. I am now the black sheep of Miramax. No one wants to touch me. Certain things are already known about me in the industry. The sort of yay Troy thing is going downhill at this point, and this couldn't have happened at a worse time. It's the first real tragedy that I absorbed in the business, right? So on comes one of my favorite human beings in the world, Cassian Ellis, who was the president of independent film financing over there at William Moore. He's actually Carrie Ellis's brother from Men in Tights. And,
well, Princess Bride, Saw, but you chose Men in Tights. That's fine.
What does it say about you?
I mean, Carrie's done. He's done a couple things. I'm just saying.
Yeah. So Cassian he's about the greatest guy in the world. So he finds, the company will come in. They're going to pay the 100% turnaround situation. Wow. And it's the first time Rifkin said, all my years in this business, I've never seen this happen. And clearly, Harvey does not want this movie being made for obvious reasons. He doesn't want it becoming successful when he's writing you off as a mistake and trying to make everyone forget that this even happened. Cut to get the thing made. I get a bottle of champagne and a note from Harvey on the first day of principal, which I completely mistake as genuine, but it was just a gangster tactic.
It was to screw you up on your day one. Yeah, that's all it was.
Yeah, it was like the gangster walking you to say, "Hey, you're doing a good job. We're liking what we're saying. We're like,
here's a fish.
Here's a fish in newspaper. Don't read into it. So I get the movie made, and we're going to spare you some of the other stories, but there was some quite obvious things that happened once I tried to get my little movie out there, where roadblocks were, inexplicably being thrown up in front of this film, and I had people from this industry calling me, telling me that they had been straight up intimidated either by him personally or people, representatives from his company, and so there was this campaign to then, when the movie got made, to end it and have no one see it. Strangely enough, though, and here's the fucked up part of this, he wasn't able to. When you make a movie like that the kids are going to find, it's going to happen no matter what. The thing that really screwed us at the time was a whole nother deal. It was 2 weeks before we were having our screenings for the industry, and that's where you take your little movie. You go to the big lots, Sony, Paramount, Fox. We went to all of them, and you have screenings for all them and their buyers, and all buyers from all over the place. And so you got packed. We were having packed screenings, 300-400 people. Almost no one was leaving, which always happens in these types of screenings. But you're basically asking somebody, buy my film and distribute it through your engine, your network. And Columbine happened. And I don't know if you remember, right the fuck there, like it was on cue. We're having screenings that are off the charts. And
people are loving it. And then
nobody coming forward. We were reading the kind of writing in the sand. Finally, this one buyer comes up to us and says, congratulations. He's highly complimented. Congratulations, you made a great movie. And he very, very nice about it. He said, you've been blacklisted from U.S. screens. Nobody is going to theatrically release this movie, so you got to put it on video. And that was just like, dun, dun, dun. We were all talk about trying to find your answer in the bottom of a beer glass. We just, everybody, how hard we'd worked, and this thing that happened, nothing to do with us. But all the touchstones in it, people in trench coats did this. I had two guys. It was two young men They did the violence. I had two young men, you know, and it was just all the parallels were ridiculous. And it was exactly what they were stopping production on and pulling out of theaters right there. Clinton landed here and had a whole talk with the industry, and they reacted that way. You stop production on anything with violence in it right now, especially youthful violence. Pull anything with violence out of theaters. They even started with video games. And I was right there with my little film going, please help me.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
You know, and we just got screwed. But fun story, Boondock was about to touch the public for the first time, right? And I was in the darkest depression ever because I'm like, it doesn't matter now. There's no theatrical release. There's no way this film's going to be successful. So I meet this guy, Dean Wilson, who remained one of my dearest friends and contacts in this business until his death a couple of years ago. Dean was the CFO of Blockbuster, and they had 7,500 stores. That was during the biggest. They were huge. They were home video for every studio, and they had a lot of power. So I take him down. It was me and Flannery. You know, and a couple, I think maybe even Norm was there. We take him down to Photochem and arrange a screening for him to see the film. I remember, because I'd already seen it a million times, I fell asleep in the only thing that I had bought with my newfound riches, which was the 68 Chevelle, fire engine red with tinted windows, badass car. I get knock on the window, and here's this excited guy, Dean Wilson, right? And he's like, "Oh my God, that's great." He goes, "We're gonna release this and make a deal for you to be a Blockbuster exclusive." I didn't know what that was at the time, but what they were doing was taking smaller films that they felt should have been theatrical released, or that they saw thought would really touch their public, and release them in Blockbuster stores like they were big films. Instead of 2 copies per store, there was 60 or 120, depending on the size of the store. So Boondock was released on video as if it was some big theatrical success. And I remember walking through my local Blockbuster store and just seeing shelves and shelves of Boondock Saints. You know, at that time, videotapes. It was VHS at first. You know, and this was right during the crossover of DVD was beginning. So I was like, all right, make the deal. So they made the deal, right? And come to find out later on that it was Blockbuster's highest grossing straight-to-video hit in their history. Now, something I always kidded Dean about was Blockbuster had the opportunity to buy the home video rights for $150,000, slightly after he saw how well it was doing. It made some ridiculous amount in 6 months, like $12 million.
You mean as part of the deal? And it's like it was a.
We're going to take their deal was we're going to do an exclusive Blockbuster video window. We'll pay you this much and share this much of the profits with you. And they were like, all right, you want all the video rights too, so you can sell all VH, not just rental deal, but like you can sell all the VHS and DVDs that are going to come out because of this for $150,000. If he had taken that deal, I remember just lighting into him once when we were at dinner. He took me to dinner to meet Charlie Icahn. It was the best. It was the best. And I was like, you guys had the opportunity to buy that for $150,000. And in front of Charlie Icahn, I went, you would have made $150 million if you had done that. And by the way, by that time, the numbers were in. So that wasn't a joke. And Dean was like, thanks. You meet Charlie Icahn, the most embarrassing goddamn thing I've ever done.
It's kind of like
nobody would have seen it if it wasn't for this guy. So I owed him everything.
Right. It's kind of like when Fox gave Lucas the sequel rights and the merchandising rights for Star Wars.
Yeah,
similar.
I can't tell you how many times people have compared me to George Lucas there, but let me show you how not. George Lucas was smart.
Right.
Just angry. At one point, I want the merchandising rights, and they were like, You're making a $6 million film. Who do you think is going to buy a T-shirt?
Right.
So it was the easiest thing in the world to shut me up, to give me the merchandising rights. And that ended up being saving my bacon in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So the movie comes out. It's a huge success. Everybody sees it because and for people who don't understand Blockbuster in 2001, 2002, 2003, in that world, they were at the height of their.
It was 2000. It was released in 2000 Blockbuster. And you're right. It became a huge hit.
Huge.
And apparently no one noticed except the people at Blockbuster and the fans. When a movie does that kind of business, just think about a company owing on 10 other movies that maybe did not do, didn't even recoup. There's all kinds of problems that can happen. And we got into this area where, from the industry, what we were being told was it's not a success. Nothing. I got a contract says I'm owed money here. No, it didn't do well. And I remember going to a gas station one day and seeing my first kid with the fucking tattoos for my movie on it. And I just, I'm looking, I didn't say anything to him. And I start noticing in public, I'm at bars and suddenly people will pop off lines from my movie while they're screwing around with each other at a pool table. So it was hard for me to believe that it wasn't doing well when I was seeing it in my own life just randomly, So we ended up, we cut 2 years later, had a big lawsuit, settled that all out, got the sequel rights and went forward with that, which we may have to piece this into 2 interviews, bro. Too much out of me. But yeah, it became extremely successful.
But so in other words, Hollywood accounting took over, is what you're saying.
In a lot of ways. I mean, there's a lot I can't say because it's
fair enough. Fair enough.
But yeah, the old adage of you must have heard it too. You get fucked on your first one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're never going to make money on your first one. That's just.
It's when
It's the sequel. That's where the money is.
Yeah. And that that happened too.
And to be fair, George, as well, on the first one, financially didn't do well on the movie. The merchandise he did okay, but the movie didn't do well. But Empire, that's where he started really making his money. So same thing. So you go through this process. The movie gets out, you get the rights back, and now you own and control the sequel rights to Boondock, right? At this point, well, you got the rights back at least.
Yeah. We got the right because the sequel rights were wrapped into this company and this lawsuit we were in. So once that was settled, we got our sequel rights and we were able to do 2. And within 48 hours of the conclusion of that, of those legal troubles, we had a deal for 2 on the table with Sony.
And then that went. I remember reading because I kept followed you over the years. I was like, what happened to Troy? What happened to Boo? So I'd always read whatever was out and some things. So when the sequel came out, I was reading how'd he do? What's going on? And from what I understood, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the merchandising rights. That's it's like George says, the money's in the launch boxes, idiots.
Yeah, did well, and it still is, But with the sequel, that's made a metric ton of money and done very, very well and continues to. Cult classic is about the coolest 2 words in film, and I wasn't the first to say that. There was a whole bunch of other people that did, and that's what I've done. And I'm extremely grateful to all those long-suffering fans. Because, if you think about it, they're going to be waiting 10 years between 1 and 2 and another 10 between 2 and 3. Yeah. It sucks, but,
you're like the Kubrick of indie films. Like he does one movie every 10 years. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like Lucas and Kubrick, just not half as talented or wealthy.
Exactly. It's just like them, but completely different. So I have to ask you though. So the sequel comes out. You do very well with that. You're doing well with merchandising. What is the biggest lesson you learned, man, in this entire Boondock journey? What was that thing that you're just like, fuck?
I think it's what I said before. that this business is all about relationships. I may have been able to sustain some of the more controversial things that happened if I had maintained my relationships properly, with agents, with producers, and with actors. And also learning from your mistakes, and right after you make them. Don't take 20 years to figure something out like I did. Learn you have to walk out of a room, say, screwed up. How did I do it? What did I do? Why? Don't do it again. Here's the right thing to do. So learning from your mistakes and keeping that black book going would be the two essential pieces of advice. But really, if you boil that down, it's just growing up and maturing. A level of maturity, and a director just needs to be, and this is the part that I didn't need to learn and didn't make many mistakes. A director needs to be somebody that people trust on set. This guy knows what he's doing, and that they will follow you to the ends of the earth. They will go into meal penalties. They won't call their unions and bitch about things. They will follow you and really, really give you 110%. And when you're doing a movie that you truly believe in, that is the most important thing. Having that cast and crew go, no, just surround you and protect you and do, execute perfectly, and with big, fat, beautiful hearts, and put their all into it. That is the part that I had down. And that's why I think in a lot of ways Boondock went so well. Boondock turned out the way it was. This film with this shelf life of fucking uranium.
That's a great line. You should be a writer. You should be a writer, sir.
It's funny. Even today, like when I'm almost forced to see, like, people, what do you do? Oh, I'm a filmmaker. Well, what film? I just did Boondock Saints, right? You get this. I have seen this so many times with my friends. They'll say like a movie they did, and somebody, oh yeah, that's great. I saw that. It was wonderful. This is what you get sometimes when you say you did Boondock Saints. You did Boondock Saints. All of a sudden, they don't believe you. They put you through a test, say the prayer, the fucking prayer, and they can repeat it right to you, and they're like, oh my god, Joey, you're never gonna fucking believe it. It's just like it's a whole different thing with Boondock. People have taken this one so personally. And it makes my heart soar every time, I get the best goddamn fans ever. There was this one article that a critic wrote, and I think it was entitled something like, "Don't ever criticize Boondock Saints in a bar." He almost got ass kicked by a bunch of fans who surrounded him and started reciting the prayer.
Like a cult.
It's like it was. They are a randy fucking lot, man. And when I remember being with Rocco when we heard, he's the one that found the article and sent it to me, and he was just laughing his ass off. He's like, "There's got to be a way to, send them off to. Do we have like an assassination squad? Like anybody that fucks with us, can we just send them there to deal with it?" I was like, I don't know, but wow.
It's, and it's so fascinating, man, because Boondock has this kind of lore about it. And you're absolutely right. Out of all the films that came out in the 90s and early 2000s, let's say that because you're part of that group of crop of filmmakers from 1989 to 2001, 2002, that kind of crew. There aren't, in my understanding, any films in that time period that have the level of fandom that, because look, we all know El Mariachi. Well, Clerks, I would argue Clerks, but no one's beating anybody up over Clerks. They're not fighting over, they're not like, what did you say? What did you say about the star? The Death Star? What? Like, it doesn't happen. But there's a different level of passion I feel with Boondock, and I've seen it, dude. I've seen the tats. I've seen all of that, dude. It's like it goes deep. And why do you think that is, dude? I mean, I know the story is really, there's almost a religion aspect to it, almost.
I would boil it down to two things, but it's almost you could do it to each individual, and ask them that question. You might get a different answer, but I think it comes down to two things. Brotherhood. People love movies about brothers, and people have brothers and sisters. Blood. Mm-hmm. And when you see Connor and Murphy chew through a brick wall to save each other or back each other or kill somebody or survive together as blood and family, that plays into it. also, the best friend aspect of it. Rocco is almost like that stereotypical friend everybody had in high school. It was like a puppy dog, down for anything, loyal as hell. Even though he couldn't fight, if you got in a fight, he was going to jump in and get his ass kicked.
All right.
So everybody had that. The other part of it, I think, is just the slight adjustment on a theme. We all had seen vigilante movies and the superhero-themed movies forever. Mm-hmm. But in terms of the vigilante movies, it's almost like you need to have personally offended me that I'm going to come after you, or a group of people. I'm going to mow them down one by one because you killed my family.
Batman, right?
Our little, like it's Charlie Bronson stuff.
Yeah, Punisher, Charlie Bronson, Batman, all those guys. Yeah.
The adjustment that I made was you don't need to have personally offended Connor and Murphy. They're killing you because you're a bad person, and that's it. But they're doing it in this way where there's belief and faith wrapped into it.
Right.
So I believe that young people that were watching that at that time who may have, I think that young people watching at that time saw that aspect of it. These are two boys following their moral code. And you can believe they're just badass vigilantes. Irish guy is fucking killing it. Or you can believe they were sent by God. It doesn't really matter. What they're doing essentially is protecting us, protecting society. And I think that was that one little adjustment that we hadn't seen before that really got into people. Because if you think about it, if you and your friend or you and your brother were going to do a similar thing, you would do exactly what if you we're going to kill the bad people, the true threats to our community. We're going to kill them. What you would do is you'd go get guns, try to shoot them in the head and get away with it and not get caught. Mm-hmm. That's what we do. So it seemed also there was just a kind of reasonableness and logic to it. Of course, this would happen if it. So I think that those are like, in a very general, wide, broad sense, those were one of the reasons. Was probably a good part of the reason why Boondock struck a chord so deeply with people. But I think if you ask those people, you'll get a different fucking thing from each one.
Sure. Movies are always something to everybody else, but I was just curious what you thought, because there's something visceral in it. There's no question. There's something very visceral in the reaction that people have to that film. Either you love it or you hate it. There is generally not a gray with Boondock. Yeah. It's generally like, it's okay. No, you love it or you hate it. It's one of those two.
You know what? It's really fun too, because that frustrated we were critically just smashed to pieces, but the fans just loved it. So critics who would, I even think I saw Kurt Loder say something about this on MTV.
Dude, wow, going back.
So upset, and they just couldn't be like, why do you all love this movie so much? I'm a critic, and I know what good movie making is, and this sucks. Why does everybody like it? Oh, well. And it was like, okay, that happened so many times, And it was like, it became a joke for all of us afterwards. It's like, hey, so the guy hated us, and that's it. Right.
Now, when you were going back on that, I just want to go back real quick to the first day on set for Boondock, the first one. You first time you're directing, right? First time you're on set. You've gone through hell and back to get, more than most filmmakers, because making any movie is hell. at almost any level, but you really have a documented journey of hell and back. So you're there on your first day, dude, and you're working with amazing actors. How do you feel, man? How do you take it on? Are you just relieved to get going, or are you what is it?
Anxious to get going. But by that point, I had grown up with this sort of East Coast mentality in terms of you go out there, you put in your day's work hard, you earn your money.
Right.
So I was gonna earn this. I realized how much time and money we had. I was keeping my eye on the ball, and what I did was just get through that day as hard as possible. And that first day is where I started to earn the faith of my cast and crew. Right. I remember this one time going up, and I was going on set. I was stopped by a PA and told that I couldn't come out. He had no idea who I was. I had overalls on. I didn't blame the kid. He wouldn't have known. But once we had a nice funny got our coffees in us, it was like, get to work.
Right.
And I realized, maybe from sports and playing things like hockey and stuff, and how you can deal with actors is almost like a coach deals with players in a lot of ways. But just know you're each individual player. guy like Defoe. He liked to get inside of a room and feel the spatialness of it, walk around, mumble his lines, and I would always kind of clear everybody out and give him some time, and then we were able to riff. And this is a guy you approach, you're about to get something out of him that's going to make what you had on the page way better. Whereas, maybe when I'm dealing with the brothers, sometimes it's just like a coach psyching you up for the big game. That's what they need in the moment. So, I guess I'll probably go into that on my upcoming disastrous social media thing. But I'm going to start doing videos and telling those stories. But when an actor walks off feeling like they just got something good, they just did a great job.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
And they're walking on air. They just simply begin to trust you, and everything goes smooth from there. And when guys that have been like you say your key grip in this business has been in the business forever, and the guy is a legend. Ours was. Mm-hmm. And he knows great directors, and at the bar that night after day one, if he's going, hey, I just signed off on you with everyone, that you're getting there, Right. And then it just started to ramp up. By the time we were done shooting, nobody wanted to go home. Everybody wanted this film to continually shoot.
Like a series.
Yeah, turn it into a TV series. Screw the movie.
Right.
Just keep it all here and shooting, because we were all having such a fun time. And all the way from an actor to wardrobe people, to hair people, to food people, they all saw almost instant gratification for their work right there on set, because they were invested in the characters, and they were invested. This new guy, David Delarocco, they didn't know who he was. Mm-hmm. And the wardrobe ladies cried just off set when they watched his death scene. And I remember coming by, I'm like, whoa, what's going on? Didn't realize what was going on. And they're like, no, it's fine. It's fine. And they were actually hurt that he was fake dying on screen, Wow. And that one of those moments where you're like, ooh, what the fuck is happening here? What do I have here? Because that doesn't happen,
No, it doesn't.
And a lot of other things like that. There's so many stories that I have to share with the fans who have been waiting a long fucking time.
So I got to ask you, though, man. I think you kind of touched upon this earlier, man, that you obviously are an accomplished filmmaker. You're obviously a good storyteller and a good director. You've made two, like almost legendary mythical movies that people just adore, who've done big business. Why haven't there been other opportunities? Why haven't there been other projects? Are you still leaning? Is it still a spillover from the Harvey blacklist bullshit, or is it just, or is it the doc? I'm just curious.
Yeah, everybody's all upset about what I did to Harvey.
No,
that poor man.
That poor
him like that. No, it's definitely documentary still haunts, and I think that was kind of looked at as I made the cardinal sin of letting them backstage and airing Hollywood laundry when it wasn't really me. I think there's also a lot of misunderstanding, like, oh my God, that maniac, what's happened? Is he all right? Is he even doing anything? But like I said, there are my pockets of fans. So yeah, this whole thing has affected me. It has not necessarily put me in the best light at say I'm not popular with the Chicago Police Department. there are places where I'm not popular,
Sure.
And they don't want me around them or their projects or anything. And then there are other places where there are guys that were turned fan, right out of college that are now running some big shit, and they're like, Duffy, get over here. Right. And so it's gone up and down. I'm going to try and turn myself into a movie making machine over the next bunch of years. I feel I've accumulated enough knowledge and experience in this business to really be of value. We're going to start out, hopefully with part 3, which we can talk about in a minute. But in terms of other projects, I have been writing my ass off with a whole bunch of stuff. 2 I'd like to mention in particular. One, we're trying to put together during this COVID time, because there's an opportunity potentially in Australia. One of my dear friends and producers, something we did. We already pulled one off during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even tell you about that. A Guest House. Boom. Pauly Shore, our boy Pauly Shore.
Yeah.
I wrote and produced it with my friends Sean Bishop and Sam Macaroni, who directed it.
Mm-hmm.
And we were the one comedy in America on iTunes. We were number 7 on iTunes. It's like this thing that happens quiet, you know. If all this hadn't been happening, you know, it would have been like on Fallon.
So it's like God. I can't walk the streets in Bulgaria. I can't. I mean,
I'm big in Japan, bro.
I'm huge in Japan. I can't walk the streets of Japan.
So it was this zany movie. We did that, and it was really good. Pauly, I'm really proud of Pauly. He really killed it. It's sort of a comeback performance. Nobody's seen Pauly in a while, and he's just amazing.
I love Pauly, man.
We did a movie about, like, essentially it's about a guy living in a guest house, and this couple buys the house, tries to get him out, and he won't leave. So it's like War of the Roses. But we did it. Sam was a great director. It was a wonderful producing experience for me. But my guy, Scott Clayton, helped finance that, and he's out of Australia. And the reason we even knew each other was because of this other script I'd written called the Bloodspoon Council. Now, what that script is essentially about a group of serial killers, of hunters of serial killers, led by a mastermind profiler, one they call a 1%er profiler, that goes out into the world, identifies, snatches, executes serial killers, and delivers them to the doorstep of the FBI. And so the FBI is covertly looking for them and can't let the fact that they are out there murdering U.S. citizens at random get out, because it would be way too bad, you know, because once people found out that they were serial killers, they might be like, just like Boondock, aren't they doing your job for you? Aren't you guys supposed to be doing that?
And now you have the FBI pissed off at you as well.
Extremely dark thing. And I put in about 2 years of research into serial killers before I put pen to paper on it, with my buddy Chris Lasseter, who helped me in the writing duties with it. But as soon as it hit this wonderful company called Grindstone over at Lionsgate, you know, they were like, get in here. Turns out, again, these were fans of mine. These guys had gone through other companies, and while Boondock was happening, they were keeping an eye on it. They were saying things like, we got to get a movie with this guy back in the day. So when I got in there, I realized they told you, they give you these stories. This is how your film affected me. One of them was a young guy who I got in college. One of them was already in the business over at some huge company that escapes me now. Right. The other one was this, you know, they all had their Duffy story, and they all threw them on me. I was like, this is great. And then they were like, we read the script, and oh my God. And they put me right on the conference call with Clayton. Here's the guy, money guy. We want to get moving on this right away. Now this is how, you know, hard these things are to put together. You'd think you'd have a well-heeled company like that, willing to pick up the domestic rights for however many million, a financier coming in for all the rest of it, that they've worked with on a bunch of other movies. You think this is going to get done quickly. It doesn't. You know, until all the lines that are dotted are signed, you got nothing. But here we all made the college try, and now we're trying again during COVID because there's a potential opportunity in Australia. But we're trying to get that one off the ground. That's one of those, you know, you must have it too, like that project, your little.
Oh, I've got a couple.
Yeah, I spit shine it every now and then, pull it out, update it when it needs to be, and now we've got some opportunity to potentially pull one off, because really the story is a cat and mouse game between the mastermind profiler for the council and this kid that the FBI brings in, who is also a 1%er, who doesn't really like the idea of what these guys are doing, but is so curious about this guy. You know, who's not going to be? They're like, you know, he's like, you know, these guys have pulled down 7 serial killers in the last 5 years. You guys get like what?
One a decade.
And he has to virtually walk through the front door. You know, you really want to catch these guys, kind of thing. You know, so it becomes it's really, really awesome to me. You know, one of the more well researched and exciting projects, as long as we can find people that can deal with the darkness, because. You know, you don't do Silence of the Lambs, you know, without Hannibal Lecter, and you don't give Clarice a dog to make her more sympathetic. You gotta go there with stuff like that. And these days, you know, there's kind of the real violence and the real darkness. They're kind of pulling back on that now, and I think it's affecting storytelling in the industry, and I fucking hate it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's well, the whole thing with COVID, man, and that's the other thing I want to tell you. Well, first of all, by the way, can't wait to see that movie. Dying to see that. That sounds absolutely remarkable. And I'm so glad that there are these fans of people that have gone through the system and grew up with you. It's like, it sounds like we're old farts. You know, it's like we're like, hey, you know, when I was a kid, your movie really did. I look at a much, much, much smaller level. I get it with a film I did in 2005 that people constantly would come back to me on, like, oh, I bought that movie. It was a short film. It was a short film. It's a short film called Broken. But what I did in that little DVD, I threw 3.5 hours of how to make a movie with a DVX 100A Final Cut Pro, when nobody had any information about making movies. If you remember, 2005, there was no YouTube. There was no information.
Yeah.
And that little movie, I constantly get emails about that. And it's still, when I meet people at events or something, like, dude, and they'll bring out the original DVD. I'm like, holy cow. So I, at a much, much, much smaller level than you do, I still get that kind of stuff too. And it's just
cool.
like,
it's cool that you had that trying to help out vibe. I mean, you probably were like, hey, this is how to do it, guys. You know,
yeah,
I'm having that instinct now. That's exactly what I'm going to be going and doing. I'm like, hey, this is how I did it, guys, and this is how you can do it. And that's like during this COVID time, man. I look at it like the depression is probably the big culprit here. You know, you're seeing murders go up. You're seeing suicides through the roof, right? Depression is the culprit. And I've noticed, you know, even if you don't think you're having it, I've noticed like I have like different reactions to things than I would have normally, you know, and or I'm like experimenting. I'll be like, you know, what would happen if I ate nothing but carrots for 3 days? What would that fucking do in here, you know? And I did. And essentially, you want meat so bad, you're ready to take a bite of a fellow human being.
You know what Scorsese made an iPhone short film, quarantine short film, during like the height of the quarantine, like after it was like a month or two, like when the world was shut, like literally shut down, like when nothing was moving. He shot one of it, and it was like this weird, like, you know, he's projecting stuff on his face, and it's like this whole weird, like it's basically if Scorsese made a quarantine film on his iPhone, whatever's in your head, that's what he shot.
Artists should not be left alone to their own devices. We are complete idiots. We can't take it.
It's insanity.
Oh, God. The other day, I clicked on YouTube and typed in uplifting videos. What the fuck?
Because it's so, look, there's been so much, look, man, there's been so much. This last year has been horrible for the world. It's been devastating for the world. The psychological, and I've been telling this to people for a while now, and I've said it on the show a bunch of times. There is going to be a hangover, a COVID hangover, that the society is going to have, not only in the world, but like for films. Like, I don't know when I'm going to be able to go back to a movie theater and truly feel comfortable in a group environment, or go to a film festival and just like be like Sundance, like be in Sundance. Like I can't even think about handshakes.
PTSD from the shit, you know?
Like handshakes. I don't even know if I'll ever handshake somebody again. I think the elbow thing is the closest thing I'm going to do for a while. It's crazy, but it's really a serious thing that's happening to humans, and us as artists, we're bouncing off the damn walls in here.
I know, dude. I had the funniest interaction. If you had been with me, you'd have just laughed your ass off. It was in the Staples. I'm going to save the story, all of it, but I had a reaction. You know those guys that, you know how Staples are just huge? They're gigantic warehouse. I go in there, and there's maybe 2 employees. There's two other customers. I'm walking around with a stupid mask on.
Right.
I hate this goddamn thing.
Right.
And all I have to buy is Velcro and rubber bands. It's the only reason I'm there.
Sure.
You ever see one of these guys in like a supermarket? They're like, hey, yeah, what did he say? There was a dude being so loud. It was bouncing off the walls.
Oh my God.
And I did something that I'm going to preserve for my own website, but it's not how I would have reacted in any normal situation. You know,
Right.
I realized walking out of there that something's kind of wrong here. You know, I'm not reacting the way I normally would. And as a director, you have to have been in that position where everything's going wrong, the whole world's coming down, and you have to be calm. You can't look for who made the mistake and try and get them. You have to take all the blame yourself and just keep pushing it forward. Always been good at that. But this, you know, there's a part of maybe my personal depression that offends that very core area of mine, and I find myself not reacting in similar ways that I don't know myself anymore, just a little bit here and there, and it sends you those cues just like little lightning bolts.
Yeah.
Well, you don't do that. It may have been funny, you know, it may have been fun to do, but you don't do that. You don't act like that.
Right.
You are the sort of rock of calm in the middle of that stuff. And now it just doesn't take too much to rile you, or me anyway, just speaking for myself. But yeah, I really wish, you know, that there was, maybe that's what we can do with Indie Hustle Academy.
Yeah.
You know, get a bunch of artists together to talk about their depression during this and why and how.
Man,
and what they maybe even combat it. You know, I have my little techniques and they work most of the time, but nobody's talking about it, bro.
I've been lucky enough because I'm constantly talking to people, interviewing people, talking all the time to people like yourself, and constantly. So during this entire time, I've had human interaction, and I'm home with my family and stuff. But I've had human interaction, and I can talk things out. But I can't imagine just being locked up. Like, I can't just watch the days of me sitting down and watching 10 hours of movies. I can't do that anymore.
I know. And even when you can go out, like I'm coming to you from a man cave in Old Town Pasadena. All right. One of my favorite spots on earth. And when you walk around here and there's just nobody, it's a ghost town, you know? It's a ghost town, and all the businesses are shut down. They're starting to open up now, but like I had a couple of months ago, I had the experience of jogging right down the main strip. I may have seen 4 people the whole time. I get busted by a cop for jaywalking.
Because he's got nothing else better to do with his life.
He's got zero. You could hear the tumbleweeds in the background while this guy was writing me the ticket. I was almost like, really? Really? This seems like a good idea to you. There is no one around here. There's no one. Wow. There was no cars too, because it was really early in the morning, you know. And I was just super like, you know, what
are you doing?
I think it's even affecting cops. You know?
Oh no, of course. Like, I can't give tickets anymore because there's nobody to give tickets to.
Yeah, there's a guy right there.
What is it?
I'm gonna get back to being an officer. Excuse me, sir.
That was a good Jim Carrey. That was a very good Jim Carrey. Excuse me.
The pen is blue. The pen is blue.
I would like to ask you a few questions. So, dude, first of all, I want to thank you so much for being so brutally honest, raw, setting this record straight on everything that's happened to you in your career and where you're going, which is a question I know a lot of people who are your fans want to know. Like, when's Boondock Saints 3. When's that happening?
I want to tell you about one thing first.
Okay.
Like it if you include this quick project. There's always kind of writing projects on the on the horizon. That's one of the nice things to kind of keep you going. And we're trying to. There's this really cool one right now. I remember that there's a producer named Daniel McNichol and Scott Raleigh. They're out of this place called Galatia Films in hot Atlanta. They again, producers that were fans. You know, can you take a look at this script? And it was a script called Glastonbury about Christ's. There's a legend, basically, that said his uncle Joseph of Arimathea took him to Great Britain, to this place called Glastonbury when he was in his teens, because so Christ was there. Right. All this kind of evidence in the local area for it. And the story is based on this legend. So it was extremely well researched. I read it. I liked it. And then they basically say, you know, we are in a bit of a pickle here because we need to bust this into a trilogy. We want to do more of a sort of Lord of the Rings trilogy. And funny thing, I had always had this kind of thing, that question you have in your, what happened after Christ died, rose from the dead? What happened then? Because all those biblical all-stars were still alive. His mom, all the apostles,
Joseph,
of course, Joseph of Arimathea, his uncle, Mary Magdalene. Everybody was still there. What did they do? What happened?
Did they Netflix and chill?
I know. I mean, Netflix and chill. So I always had this idea about, a sort of a historical fantasy story about Christ's all-stars going out into the world after he was gone, and they got this cup, which ends up being the most supernatural thing on earth that can change the tides of war and men and nations. So I just kind of put it right over this idea and said, look, here's how we go big, We'll
be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
Without going to, wizards and dragons, and give something that people are tangible that will have, that if we move out into the world with Christ's all-stars and they've got the Holy Grail, and it starts showing itself, and they realize that they're seeing these very powerful things happening. And this thing can be everything from something that saves you to a weapon, very dangerous. How dare God put this power in our hands, the hands of men, So I thought, great. So we made the pitch during COVID. It was like right here, Zoom call pitch, and they loved it. So we're trying to make that deal right now. So that is a potentially upcoming project for Troy. Now you want to get to 3?
Boondocks. Yeah, Boondock 3. Yeah, what happened? When's going on with Boondock? Because I'm sure there's a few people who want to know.
Oh, man. Yeah. So, all right. You know how it is in the business. I can't tell you what will happen tomorrow on that.
No one can.
Nothing's happening until all the dotted lines are signed. And this is kind of where I wanted to maybe segue into what's happening with independent film, especially budget levels and the types of independent film that Boondock is.
Yeah.
We can talk about that in a second. Let's pair that one off. But what's happening with Boondock is that script, there was a long and winding road to crack the code on that script. And I knew that I had to kind of get it right. And so I brought in a couple of writers who have been friends of mine for 25 years. I know the brand very well. And once I got to a certain point, we all started bouncing it. And over the last year and a half, I'd say, we got it. And it is done. And I'm talking so hot off the presses. It's days. We have to put it through one or two more stages creatively. I need to hear it out loud. I need to hear that read out loud, with all the accents and everything. I need to then kind of pop it through this whole final phase that I can tell my fans about later on. But it is at that phase. The problem with getting it done lies in the scheduling and availability, and the fact that COVID has virtually ended the production of all films almost on this level. At this time 2 years ago, there would have probably been hundreds in the industry, if not thousands privately, of independent films at that budget level being shot.
And when you say budget level, you're talking in the 5 to 10 million?
Yeah, we'll say 5 to 15.
5 to 15, got it.
So I needed to get a solid foundation on that script. I needed to have it feel more towards a sort of deeper, darker Boondock 1. And we finally did. There's also this kind of odd, timely thing that happened with it. It kind of has some things to do with what's happening now in our society, so it's even more tangible. I love what we got. I love this script.
It's awesome.
So we're going to try to move out with that. Here's one of the major problems. COVID has really, really hurt independent film. What's happening now is that one of the reasons very few things, even big budget, are being shot and done, the production has virtually stopped and only these really big streamers can handle it, is because of an insurance issue. I've been involved in these talks for a long time, and they cannot find anybody that's going to write COVID insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
The people that are shooting right now usually are self-insuring because they're wealthy enough and well-heeled enough companies to financially self-insure, which is your Amazons, your Netflix, your Hulus, the ones who can afford to self-insure. But here's what it means, what it would mean for an independent filmmaker. If I've got, say, $1 million to go make let's make it even numbers, $5 million to make my film. No, let's make it 10. Yeah, I'm so great with math. Let's make it $10 to make my film. Now, 25% of it goes away.
Right.
Right to COVID protection on set. They're doing these crazy things with pods where all your, wardrobe people will actually never be in a room with your grips and electric people who will never have any physical contact with the top-level producers and director and video village over here. Mm-hmm. They are literally, and if one person comes down with COVID in the pod, they remove everybody, put a whole new pod of people in there. It's extremely expensive. It is financially debilitating.
Yeah.
Especially to independent films. That ends us right there for now. It'll be fixed. We'll come back. But there is no way. I mean, you're already on a tight budget historically, and you know this just as well as I do. You've been through this many times. That every single cent, plus hopefully a rebate, that's your finishing cost. We know how to make these things with the money that we're given. We know what's possible and not possible. I know I have to give up that great location for this good one because it saves me this money that I need for this. Mm-hmm. That's how we do independent films. To have something that comes in from which you get zero benefit, that sucks up 25% of your budget, just gone, burned in flames, ends you. And they're usually kind of privately financed or financed by companies that really like to get their money back.
Right.
Those people right now are going, 25, I got to pay 25% right out the door for this crap.
Yeah, and it doesn't put 25% more on the screen at all.
Yeah. And you don't get it back. You don't get it back at all in any way unless the movie makes so much money that everybody's happy, right? But they're not. So that really does play in. Another thing that can make you depressed is going like the state of my business. This is what I do, man. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. The state of my business is going down in flames right now. It's really hurting. It's really on its knees, and it scares. It scares me. I'm scared of that. I want to see it come back and bounce back with full vigor, and I know it's gonna.
Well, it will. It will. You can't keep something like independent film or creatives down, or it just the business model has to change. It has to adjust. You know as well as I do. Those budgets have been coming down. Studios are only doing $80 to $250 million movies. They're not even touching. And the 5 to 15 is almost no man's land. It's a rough number. It's
really happening. I've heard of one film that has happened to that.
But it's you're talking about a sequel to two very successful, almost legendary films. So it wouldn't make sense in that budget range to kind of make that next movie. But dude, I agree with you. I think it will come back. It is brutal. I talk to filmmakers every day. I talk to the big guys. I talk to the little guys. I talk to everything in between, and everyone's having problems. Everyone. Yeah. People that you would, who've been on my show, who've won Oscars, and they're like, I can't get that. And then I, privately, I'll be like, so
can't get a movie made.
So if you can't get a movie made, what is the chance of me or Troy getting our stuff off the ground? It's but that's the reality of our business, and everyone's having a problem. So now it's really, honestly, man, this is when, all that shrapnel is going to come in handy, because guys like you and me have been able to survive at this world where the larger guys who've been more comfortable, they're like, how much did you make? You made that movie for $5 million. I don't even know how do you make a movie for $5 million. And then, like, my last movie I made for 3,000 bones, and got released, and all this stuff. And people are like, their minds just freaking explode with that, So it's just like, the hustle, the hustle, the hustle. If I may plug the word.
Alex Ferrari, ladies and gentlemen. By the way, you lucked out with your last name. What the? Hi, it's Troy Porsche coming at you with his buddy Alex.
Duffy's not bad, dude. Duffy's not bad. Duffy's not bad. No, man, but
I get you, because I mean, I know that we're going to come. Sometimes you have to have this odd kind of faith. I know is as depressed as it can be right now, as depressed as I have been, and as in under the threat that our business is in. I know that we, guys like me and you, and all those filmmakers, other filmmakers, that we're going to come back 10 times stronger.
Yeah.
We're not even done learning the lessons from this, but the ones we will are going to carry us forward and make us do probably better work. I mean, there's nothing that makes you want it and appreciate it more like having it snatched away from you and you can't do it anymore. That has felt like, I've always been shooting something. I've always been doing something. And then this.
But I think is honestly, dude, sometimes you need, I think, and you can see this throughout history, you've got to go into the dark phase. I mean, the Dark Ages, what came out of the Dark Ages? The Renaissance.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's light.
Greatest artistic period in history.
In human history. So I'm feeling that hopefully something like that will happen for independent film. I mean, the 90s was an explosion of creativity, and I think the landscape is different, and there's so many different things than it was in the 90s and when we were coming up, but there's something new that we can't even see yet that's going to be big, and I think that there will be hope, there will be light at the end of this tunnel, but it's all about now just, look, I say this all the time, dude, I say this all the time, and I think you will agree with me 100%. No matter who you are in this business, I don't care if you're Steven Spielberg, Troy Duffy, Alex Ferrari, anybody, you're going to get just jacked in the face by this business all the time. It happens at every level and at every stage of your career. More at the beginning, but you could also get it at the end. The difference is what I try to do with Indie Film Hustle and with everything that I do is I warn you that the punch is coming, because a lot of people are just walking around like, hey, man, boom, done, out. You're gone. They're gone. They're gone from the business because they're knocked out, because they didn't even know it was coming. And they're like, wait a minute, I didn't sign up for this shit. And they're out. I'm warning you that it's coming and you're going to get hit. And it's about getting hit, as like Rocky says. It's about getting hit and keep moving forward. And then occasionally, as these gray hairs start popping out, like you and I have, these little grays, these little grays start popping out, you start to learn how to duck a bit. You learn how to, you still might get hit, but you learn how to take that hit a little differently. You learn how to move. And occasionally you get so good that you can just see them coming and you just start bobbing and weaving and you don't get nearly hit as much. But those punches will always keep coming.
And the people throwing the punches give up and stop trying to punch you. They're like, that guy's just too good. Fuck it.
Right. It's like Muhammad. It's like Ali at his top. You're like, you couldn't.
We're not putting this guy in the mat anymore. We did at the beginning, the glory days when he first yelled action. He was like, oh, it's such a special day, everybody, and action.
You're out, and you're out. He's out for the count.
Those days are over. You're not gonna. He's learned how to block.
Exactly. But I think we'll all come out of this, man. It's a tough time. We've been in tough times before. This is unprecedented tough times. This is once in a generation situation. But I do believe that something good will come out of it, man. It has to. I have to believe that to keep moving forward.
I have to too, but just think about all the other times that we've been hit in this business with whatever. Even during the Columbine, that's when they first started discussing real censorship and actually self-censoring, and it all came back. We've gone through dark parts of this business. There's been like lately what happened to Kevin Spacey, and people being exposed and
to Harvey, yeah, of course, yeah.
Harvey, I can't believe I used Kevin Spacey. I had that one right in front of me.
I mean, it's called getting Weinsteined. I mean, it's literally he's an adjective. I mean,
what's really funny? I put that in a script yesterday. I'm doing this horror film. This guy's explaining to this girl how she's a wonderful actress and she probably won't even have to get Weinstein during production.
Wow.
Last night. It's weird, but yeah.
But exactly. But it's a word now.
The business and the people in it. We have taken a lot of punches in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, man.
And rolled through it and came out the other side smiling. We have to have faith in that. I do. It's just that, I also understand we're still learning things right now. It's almost like we should, like after all the vaccines get everybody vaccinated, we start to return to normal. We should come back here, maybe parse this one off for the Academy or something. Come back here and say, okay, we talked about it on March 12th, 2001.
Mm-hmm.
All the things we were learning. Now it's March 12th, 2022. We're through it. What did we learn? Where are we at?
Yeah. Amen. Now I'm going to ask you, brother, because we could keep going for at least another 3 hours, and I know we can. And we might another day, but I'm just going to ask you a few questions I ask all my guests. What advice would you give a filmmaker trying to break into the business today?
To me, one of the key skills a filmmaker needs, because you can go and take the classes, you can go to film school and learn how to run cameras and become very proficient at that. But actually, successful filmmaking takes another kind of thing. It takes another kind of talent. To me, it comes in two ways. One can almost be addressed as you have to know. I mean, you'd be surprised how many people in Hollywood can put down a script and just be like, well, what did you think? You have to know what great writing it is. If you just read something,
right,
that you have to know and go get, whether that kid is a dishwasher or the best
a bouncer at a bar in LA.
You got to go get him. You got to secure that property because it's the stories that mean something. I could have filled my first independent film with movie stars. It wouldn't have been so independent. It probably wouldn't have had the impact that it had now. One of the things that told me that I was a good and real filmmaker was I took the chance and risk to do it. I put my faith in the story, and then you all told me, good job. It had that effect on you, and I went, okay, all right. So that skill, almost like always have your head in a book. Know what good writing is. Know what good stories are. When you find the one, raise heaven and hell to get it and do it, and do not stop until you're done. That was probably the number one piece of advice into being a filmmaker, which is a very specific thing, or being a successful or good one, which is a very specific thing. The other one is we all have those friends, say in high school and college, the charismatic people that can walk into a room and, light the world on fire. You don't necessarily need to be one of those. But in dealing with actors, I mean, you will sometimes find a director that's a very great technical director that can pull off amazing shots. But then sometimes you'll see that the actors are sort of wooden in the scene. That's because that filmmaker hasn't put enough focus in that area. Getting into actors' heads, or maybe joining kind of souls with them, as candy ass as that sounded coming out of my mouth. But knowing who they are, really being able to talk with them and see how they feel about something, and really listen and really respond, because sometimes it doesn't go, it immediately sets up a red flag, Like there was this time where I'm talking to Defoe, and he goes, I feel like I should dance in this scene. And right away I'm going, there's that alarm in, and a bad filmmaker reacts like that would be, that you can't do that because you're a cop, and take it off the table, try to redirect him to something. Instead, I went, that would be totally
awesome,
appropriate, but
let's just shoot it.
Character's an inappropriate guy. So, Defoe's like, yeah, I know. Now you're in the sandbox with an actor. Now you just opened up that door.
Right.
You're two playing in a sandbox. This is that type of act. Figure out ways to truly connect with the actor that get them in it deeper, because you will always get something. Always get something better than is on the page. Always, 100% of the time. And that does require you putting your own sensitivities and ego aside. There's this. I hated this, but there was a sort of attitude about me flowing forth from people, not actors, from other people on set, that I was like this, John Huston type of overly confident. Let's go kill it. Mount up, fellas. Let's go kill it for everybody. And you could be like that sometimes. That's more cast and crew, general leading his minions or his soldiers in ways. But that wasn't. I knew it was a lie. You let it be said, and you don't really if you comment. But it was a lie. What the real nitty gritty of filmmaking is when an actor's got blood all over them, and they're in the middle of a scene, and you yell hold, and you are still filming, and you go down and whisper something right in their ear. And you make them understand, and you feel their bodies shaking, and you just go, and boom, you get something that you never thought possible because that person explodes in front of you. These are the things to me that make wise and good filmmakers. So I guess
that was arguably one of the best answers to that question ever, sir. Now I have to ask this question. I ask this question to everybody. It's not just you, sir. Right. What is the lesson that took you the longest to learn, whether in the film business or in life? I swear it's almost on every episode on my show.
Everybody, we've been talking about that. This whole interview's been about that.
I know. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show. But I just wanted to because my fans, my audience would just go, "You didn't ask him the question." I'm like, I have to ask him. So,
all right. Okay, that's simple. I am grateful. Be grateful for your mistakes.
Amen.
Your mistakes is what makes you a better person and a better filmmaker. And I have made some doozies. So now I am like the best person and the best filmmaker because I've made so many huge mistakes. Yeah. But know when. Another one would be know when to fight for something. Right. It's a series of compromises when you start to say make a film. You got producers over here yelling in your ear about the money. You got actors yelling about the story. They want this, that, and the other. You need to know what to do. You need to know where to compromise, but then you need to know where to plant your flag. If you've done a bunch of compromising before you plant your flag and defend something, everybody knows. And then you get what you want in those moments. Choose your battles wisely and make tons of compromise beforehand. Be a person that they tell on the phone to all the people they report to, yeah, he's good to work with. He gets it. We got a good director here. And then when you dig your heels in, they'll listen. Amen. Especially if you're passionate about it and you don't do it like I did, where you yell at everybody, God damn it.
Like, don't you know? No, look, we are our mistakes. So again, if a mobster shows up and wants to make a movie with me, I'll say no.
And the next time two friends of mine say, we want to do a documentary on you, I'm going to go, no, thank you.
And
Buster's thing, next time someone asks you if you're God,
you say yes. And scene. And scene. And last question, man. 3 of your favorite films of all time.
Okay. You'd have to go with Apocalypse Now for sure. Probably The Shining, but I would actually break that up into 2 categories because your favorite indies of all time. And
Fair
your
enough.
Favorite, big one, big. You got your Apocalypse Nows. You have Godfather. I consider 1 and 2 one of the greatest sequel type things. Indies. I remember when I was a kid, the first one that hit me was why does it escape me right now? Chris Lambert, Highlander.
So
first, I loved it.
So good.
It was great.
Oh, the Queen soundtrack, dude. Oh,
one.
Oh, so good.
It's great. And then, strangely enough, dude, number 1 independent of all time is a film called Nil by Mouth. Have you ever seen Nil by Mouth?
No.
Okay, you're about to have the same experience I did. I'm not going to ruin it for you.
Okay.
Don't look it up to see anything about it.
Just
get a hold of it, put it in. Don't know directors, writers, who did it, how much it cost.
What's the name of it again?
nil by mouth.
Okay.
It's an old English term where they used to hang over beds in triage units in World War I and II, say that they couldn't receive medication orally.
Okay. All right. I'll look it up.
Check it out. And we should actually reconvene after you see that and do a little mini.
Did you ever see the movie? This is an indie that I always champion, and it doesn't get talked about a lot. Man Bites Dog.
Love it. But see, again, cult classics. There's difference between an indie and a cult classic.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a Man Bites Dog. It's a Pigeon. I loved that.
Oh my God, so good.
So great.
So good.
And then but take the cult classics, because if you're gonna actually do that, I've seen awesome lists of like the hardest indies of all time, the hardcores, and it's always Boondock, Man Bites Dog,
right.
Romper Stomper,
Yeah.
a couple other big ones,
Right.
But the cult classics are a different story. They can be all over the place. How similar is Boondock to, say, Rocky Horror Picture Show?
No.
Nothing. How similar is Rocky Horror to Man Bites Dog?
Well,
Nothing.
Well, and also, if we want to go down into cult classics, the worst movie ever made, The Room, it is it is a joy to watch it, but I only want to watch that with other people and preferably filmmakers, because it's much, much more enjoyable to watch it than. And people have been asking me a lot to get Tommy on the show, and I'm up. I met him. I met him. Is he cool? Is he a cool guy?
It's odd. It's
yeah.
odd.
That's what I'm scared. I'm a little like, how do you talk for an hour with this?
The guy that introduced me to him was a friend of his, and he's like, it just kind of depends on how you catch him,
Interesting.
And I had heard that he wanted to meet me, and he was all excited in the Boondock. When I met him, he was like, "Hey," I'm like, "Well, hey, really enjoy your." It was like nothing, it was weird.
I'm kind of he's
just to have some fun and just do weird shit. Just be like, to school or pack your lunch. Hit him with fucking things that are gonna make him go, what?
I'll take that into consideration, sir. Dude, brother, man, thank you so much for being on the show, man. It has been an absolute joy talking to you. And I'm so glad I've been able to give you this place to kind of set the record straight on everything. And hopefully this will be the beginning of you being out in social media now, talking a little bit more, sharing with the fans and all that stuff. So brother, thank you for doing what you do, man, and keep doing it. We need films like Boondock out there. We need voices like yours out in the marketplace and out into cinema, man. So thank you, brother.
All right. Next one is I'm working hard on 3. Fans are going to get what they want.
Thank you, my friend.
They want, and thank you. And let's not make this our. I'm kind of really interested in the whole Academy side and giving back and maybe getting some advice on. I might send you shit before I release it, just to run it through the litmus test. Like, what huge mistake did I make here, Alex? And you'll be like, oh God, what's the matter with you?
I truly want to thank Troy for coming on the show and being so raw and honest and transparent about his entire journey as a filmmaker, man. He has one of those stories that is a unique mythical tale of what happened. And I wanted to really put all the BS aside and really find out how it really happened from the horse's mouth, the guy in the center of the storm. So Troy, thank you, my friend, so much. I hope this conversation will help other filmmakers avoid not only some of the pitfalls that you fell into, but myself as well, when I had my little version of what you did with Shooting for the Mob and trying to get my $20 million mafia film off the ground as well. So thank you so much, Troy. If you want to get links to anything we spoke about in this episode, please head over to the show notes at bulletproofscreenwriting.tv/133. And if you haven't already, please head over to screenwritingpodcast.com, subscribe, and leave a good review for the show. It truly helps us out a lot. Thank you again so much for listening, guys. As always, keep on writing, no matter what. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Bulletproof Screenwriting Podcast at bulletproofscreenwriting.tv.